Do you remember Y2K? Were you a lot like many people and had 1-gallon bottles of water all around the walls of your home or apartment, waiting for the computer grid to come crashing down and the world to cease as we know it? What about the Mayan calendar ending? Remember that? December 21st of 2012? A lot of people thought that was the end too. In fact, people in general, all around the world, seem to be obsessed with the future. Just mention the word Nostradamus and that'll raise the hair on most people's necks, worried about all of his dire predictions. I'm kind of a film buff and enjoy watching films, and there's been no shortage of end-of-the-world films or looming disaster films. I guess that's why people like fortune tellers have been popular throughout the years. A couple of films that I like to recommend would be the 1936 film by H.G. Wells called Things to Come. And it actually spans decades about this great war and how the world slips into barbarism and gradually climbs out of it. There's another movie called The Watchmen, a little more contemporary, and it's kind of a retrospective look at American history rewritten through the 80s, if we had won the Vietnam War, if Nixon was elected to a third term, and very interesting stuff. Most people are familiar with Mad Max, and that's the vein that most of these movies seem to follow. You know, the end of the world and we degenerate and things go down the toilet, so to speak. Well, I've got news for you. All around the globe there are evidence of past civilizations that are no longer with us. All around the world is evidence of civilizations that have degenerated, like Egypt, like Greece. Well, if you're a believer in Atlanteans, well, they're no longer here, nor are the Mayans or the Incas. And the sad fact is that it says in the Bible, this too shall pass. Well, I got news for you, friends. We too shall pass. In fact, there's a Greek philosopher called Heraclitus that was credited with saying, all flows. Nothing stops. Nothing endures but change. And these days we've heard it a lot translated to, there's no constant but change. Well, part of that's true, but he missed a big part of the picture. You see, our civilizations change. Our bodies change. Our physical world changes, this world of appearances that I'm fond of saying. But the truth is, there is one constant. There is one presence, one power in the universe, and that's Spirit, God, the omnipotent. His world, if I can use the male gender, is changeless and has been prior to the beginning of time. He always has been and always will be. People are terrified about the future because they see the world as we know it coming to an end. Or perhaps themselves coming to a violent or tragic end. But the fact is, as we die, as we make our transition, the analogy is given much like walking through a doorway into another room. I prefer to think of it as a stormy, wet, freezing evening, and you're outside, and your clothes are all sodden, and you decide to go indoors, as would be wise, and you climb the stairs to your home, and you take off these garments that are frozen and wet and chilled to the bone, and you discard them as you climb the steps, open the door, and go into the warmth of your home. Well, it's kind of a crude analogy, but the wisdom of it is that when we make our transition, when we die, our bodies are that sodden heap of clothing that we discard. And we come up higher into that place that we have been for all time. We recognize our spiritual selves, and we come into the everlasting arms of Spirit, of God the Father. It's tough because we're so immersed in all that's around us. But what I encourage you to do, what I invite you to do, what I challenge you to do, is to discover, or maybe rediscover, that indwelling spirit that's part of all of us. And when we discover it, we acknowledge it, we embrace it, we can celebrate our true identity, the I am that we truly are. So don't worry about the future. You can do things beyond our imagination once we leave this earthly coil. Remember, when we are at that point in our lives where we are one with Spirit, we can look around us to all the madness and say, these things do not move me. God bless.